3 years ago, my brother Kevin flirted with my girlfriend at our parents' Christmas party, and I cut him off. Since then, my parents have chosen to side with him. At first, they claimed they would support me until Kevin apologized, but recently, they invited him to their anniversary party without telling me. This incident has left me wondering if our relationship can ever be fixed. Kevin and I, now 30M and 26M, respectively, never got along as kids. By our teen years, we hated each other, but after we moved out, we became more civil, though we still didn't like each other. Then 3 years ago, at the Christmas party, Kevin crossed a line I could never forgive. At the time, I had been dating my girlfriend, now my wife Bella, for almost 4 years. I even planned to propose that night. Kevin knew how serious we were, yet he tried to convince her to leave me. Bella, being the incredible person she is, told me what had happened immediately after Kevin pulled her aside. He claimed he could treat her better and asked her to give him a hint if she felt the same. She was creeped out, and I was furious. I confronted Kevin on the spot, even though we were at a family party, and it turned into a huge fight. Kevin insisted he hadn't done anything wrong, saying he liked Bella's vibe and thought she could do better than me. The argument nearly became physical, but we were pulled apart. That was the last straw. I told my parents I wouldn't interact with Kevin anymore, and if he was invited to any event, I wouldn't attend. To my relief, my parents and most of the family, who witnessed the fight, sided with me. Everyone agreed that Kevin had crossed a line. Recently, my parents told me that Kevin had reached out to them and a few other family members, apologizing and asking for forgiveness. They forgave him, but Bella and I never received an apology, which was baffling, especially since Bella was the one he creeped out the most. Despite this, they decided to invite Kevin to their 35th anniversary party. I found out because I was responsible for sending out the invitations. When I saw his name on the guest list, I confronted my parents. They admitted they'd forgiven him, and I made it clear, if Kevin was invited, Bella and I would not attend. After some back and forth, they gave up trying to convince me and said they'd rather have their better son at the party. Kevin had apparently been nice to them recently, likely to make up for what he'd done. I hung up after that conversation, deciding to go no contact with my parents as well. Bella and I skipped the party and had a great time on our own. The party happened 2 days ago, and my parents still haven't apologized. Now they have the nerve to ask for my help because Kevin betrayed them again. The day after the party, while my dad was working from home, he discovered that some important documents were missing from his office, company strategies, financial records, and a list of major client contacts. In the end, karma caught up with Kevin. After my dad realized some important documents were missing from his home office, my parents called me this morning, panicked. They believed Kevin had stolen the papers, and when I asked how they were so sure, they explained that Kevin had left his business card on my dad's desk, a clear sign. It turns out Kevin had been working for one of my dad's competitors, engaging in corporate espionage. My parents hadn't known because they trusted him as their son and never bothered with a background check. Kevin had always dodged questions about his work, so they had no idea he'd been employed by a rival. Now, they were desperate for my help because they couldn't contact him, and they feared the stolen documents, which included company strategies, financial records, and major client contacts, could ruin my dad's career if they fell into the wrong hands. My dad was worried the board might even fire him from his own company. When I asked why they hadn't reported Kevin to the police, my mom said she didn't want him to get into too much trouble. She just wanted to talk to him and get the documents back, avoiding any legal consequences for Kevin. I was baffled that they were asking me for help, especially since I don't get along with Kevin. I told them they should go to the cops, but my mom insisted that I was the only one who could help because of my job. For context, I work in cybersecurity as an ethical hacker, meaning my job is to protect against cybercrime, not engage in it. My mom, however, suggested I could use my skills to hack into Kevin's accounts, track him down, and convince him to return the documents. I found it insulting, not only because they were trying to take advantage of my skills but also because of the way they had treated me, claiming Kevin was their better son. I was outraged and told them I wouldn't help. They had created this mess, and now they could either handle it properly by going to the police or let Kevin get away with it. I wasn't going to compromise my morals for their convenience. I felt it was fair, considering Kevin had left his business card behind, knowing they wouldn't take legal action. My parents were being foolish by letting him manipulate them again, and they refused to listen to my advice, so I hung up. Later, they sent me a desperate message asking for my help again, but I responded by reiterating that I wasn't going against my ethics to bail them out. My mom then sent me a voice note, crying and saying she felt abandoned by both her sons. She couldn't believe I, the more understanding one because I'm older, was turning my back on them. She wanted me to see it from their perspective. They didn't want to report Kevin because, despite everything, he was still family. I couldn't understand how they could be so lenient with Kevin, even after he had betrayed them. They were more concerned about protecting him and their family reputation than standing up for themselves and doing the right thing. I was furious and replied to my mom's message, saying I didn't feel sorry for them at all. They knew Kevin was trouble, especially after what he did to me, but they still gave him another chance. Now, even after being betrayed, they cared more about family than their own livelihoods. In my view, they deserved this outcome for refusing to face reality. It sounds like things have been really difficult with your family, but you've made your boundaries clear, which is important for your peace of mind. I can understand how frustrating it must have been when your parents kept defending Kevin, especially after everything he did to you and Bella. The fact that they haven't acknowledged the harm caused and continued to guilt-trip you rather than taking responsibility only adds to the frustration. It's understandable that you feel they don't deserve your help, given how they've treated you and how they've continuously overlooked the issues with Kevin, especially when he crossed a significant line by hitting on Bella. It shows they're more focused on protecting him than seeing the bigger picture. It's hurtful when family expects forgiveness without earning it, especially after making comparisons between mistakes that weren't made with malicious intent, like your financial mishap, and Kevin's deliberate betrayal. Blocking your relatives who also sided with Kevin seems like the right move if they didn't care enough to ask for your side. And if Bella is supporting you through all of this, that's really key. It shows that you're not alone in this, and you have someone who values your well-being. It's good that you've set these boundaries and put your mental health first. It's unfortunate that your parents reached out again just to continue trying to guilt you, but you stood your ground. If they do reach out again, it sounds like you're mentally prepared to handle it. If an apology is genuine, it should include acknowledging the harm caused and making amends, not just empty words to regain control or sweep issues under the rug. If that's missing, you're right to protect your peace. You and Bella are clearly united in this decision, and having that mutual support will help you navigate whatever comes next. How are you feeling now that a few days have passed since you blocked them again? It sounds like Kevin has taken things to a whole new level by turning this situation into an extortion attempt. His confession that he never worked for your parents' competitors but still plans to sell their documents unless they pay him is beyond outrageous. He's preying on their emotions and their hesitation to report him to the authorities, knowing they wouldn't want their business information to fall into the wrong hands. Kevin seems to be relying on their fear and unwillingness to involve the police to get away with this. However, threatening to sell confidential information is not only unethical but also illegal. If they continue to give in to him, this situation could spiral even more out of control. He's clearly not remorseful and is treating them like tools to exploit rather than family. It's understandable that your parents might feel torn. They don't want to lose their business, but they also don't want to ruin their relationship with Kevin or see him in legal trouble. Unfortunately, Kevin doesn't seem to care about their well-being at all, and he's making it clear that he's willing to go to extreme lengths for personal gain. At this point, it might be wise for your parents to seriously consider involving the authorities. As much as they might want to avoid legal action, Kevin is essentially blackmailing them. Even though reporting him might have consequences, not doing so could have an even worse outcome, especially for their business. If they allow Kevin to manipulate them with threats of selling their confidential information, he might continue to exploit them further. This entire situation is so stressful and manipulative, and it's really unfortunate that your parents still find themselves in this position. It's sad that Kevin's selfishness has come to this, and it's completely understandable if you continue keeping your distance from both him and your parents after all of this. How are you feeling about this latest development? Do you think your parents will go through with going to the cops, or do you suspect they'll end up paying him off? They couldn't afford to pay Kevin the kind of money he was demanding, and they were in a lot of trouble. Saying they couldn't afford it wasn't exactly right, but it would create havoc for their finances and probably eat into their retirement funds. Apparently, Kevin was doing this because he'd been struggling financially for the past few years, and nobody in the family had thought it was time to forgive or even talk to him. So, he decided to get his revenge in this way, and I have to say, it was a pretty clever plan. I was lucky that I wasn't part of this mess in any way, and it was entirely my parents' problem to deal with. After reading their email, I told them I forgive them, but I would like some space. I didn't want to jump back into a relationship with them too soon. I didn't think they'd take that well, but within a few minutes of me sending that email, they responded, saying they completely understood. They just wanted to apologize for how they had treated me. They acknowledged it wasn't right and said they should have known Kevin wasn't the good guy they thought he was. They also apologized specifically to Bella. They admitted that after how Kevin behaved with them, they had no business treating him as though everything was fine. They mentioned that, during the months they were in contact with Kevin, he had asked if Bella and I were still together and seemed disappointed when they told him we were still going strong. That should have been a sign for them to cut him off again because he's a creep. They didn't, however, because Kevin was still their son. They now realized that wasn't an excuse, and they were genuinely sorry. For what it's worth, I think it's nice that they apologized and got it out of the way. I really hope things work out for them, but I think keeping my distance is what's best for me and my wife right now. I'm glad they understand why we are staying away. Maybe someday we can work on our relationship and make it better, but now is not the time. Update. Hi, everyone. I have some happy news. Bella and I are finally pregnant after 2 years of marriage. We are so overwhelmed with joy and felt like we had to share it here. It's been 4 months since we found out, and we recently announced it on social media. My last update was almost 10 months ago, so it's been a long time since I stopped speaking to my parents. After the pregnancy announcement, my parents reached out to say they'd like to reconnect if we were comfortable with it. They respected our boundaries for the past 10 months and hadn't tried to contact us, as we made it clear that if we were ready to talk, we would reach out ourselves. After finding out about the pregnancy, Bella and I forgot about that for a while. However, I felt conflicted about whether or not to let them back into our lives. After some discussion, Bella and I decided that we should try to make things right with my parents before the baby is born. Since we're starting a new journey as parents, we wanted to leave the past behind. If my parents have truly changed, I don't see the harm in giving them another chance. Yes, it kind of goes against what I initially said about second chances, but I want my child to have the opportunity to know both sets of grandparents. Even if it doesn't work out, I'd like to give it a shot. I also found out from my parents that they eventually gave Kevin the money he demanded and retrieved all the stolen data. They even involved a lawyer to ensure he hadn't retained anything. If Kevin ever tried to sell any of the information to competitors, it would be considered a breach of contract, and he'd end up in serious trouble. So, now he can't use that against them anymore. I can't say they handled the situation in the best way possible, but it was their choice. Anyway, the important thing is that Kevin is out of everybody's lives now, and I think that's for the best. He should stay away from our family. I'm sure karma will take care of the rest. Right now, I'm just really happy to become a father. I'm spending all my time reading parenting books and preparing for this new chapter of our lives. Bella and I have never been happier. I'm also glad that things are looking up with my family, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that things will continue to improve. The story you've shared is a complex and emotional journey, filled with family tension, betrayal, and the hope for reconciliation. It highlights deep-rooted issues, particularly surrounding trust, forgiveness, and the impact of family dynamics on individual lives. Here's what stands out to me. Family betrayal. Kevin's actions are shocking, to say the least. His decision to extort your parents, despite being family, shows a deep level of resentment and a moral disconnect. It's clear that his financial struggles and feeling of exclusion fueled this, but using that as justification to manipulate his parents is undeniably wrong. The complexity of his clever plan shows that he was calculated in how he approached the situation, adding a layer of tension and deceit that would be difficult for any family to overcome. Your parents' role. Your parents, on the other hand, are caught in a tough situation, feeling responsible for Kevin's behavior, perhaps out of guilt for not helping him earlier. Their panic leads them to make questionable choices, like paying Kevin off. They seem torn between trying to be good parents to both you and Kevin, but ultimately, their initial decision to side with Kevin at the expense of you and Bella led to some serious damage. Your personal growth. Your approach to all of this is remarkable. You've kept a level head, distanced yourself when needed, and protected your wife and future family. Your willingness to give your parents another chance, despite everything, shows maturity and a strong desire for your child to have a healthy family environment. That speaks to your character and the personal growth you've experienced over the course of this ordeal. Reconciliation and boundaries. It's clear that you're cautiously optimistic about mending the relationship with your parents, but you're also very aware of the boundaries that need to be in place to protect yourself, Bella, and your child. The fact that your parents seem to genuinely understand and respect your need for space is promising, as it indicates that they may have reflected on their actions and are willing to make amends. Hope for the future. Despite everything that's happened, the joy surrounding your impending parenthood shines through. It's heartwarming to see you and Bella embrace this new chapter with optimism and love. You've chosen to prioritize your own growing family, and that seems to be a driving force behind your decision-making. In conclusion, the story reflects the real-life complexity of family relationships, the good, the bad, and the in-between. There's betrayal, forgiveness, and the potential for healing, but it's not a fairy tale ending. Your willingness to balance hope for the future with realistic boundaries makes it feel genuine and grounded in your desire to protect your new family while keeping the door open for redemption. It's a story of resilience, personal growth, and ultimately, the decision to move forward in a way that benefits everyone involved.